Welcome to this live streamed community event brought to you by the Teaching English team at the British Council. My name is Marcus James and I'm joined today by my colleague Karen. Hi Karen, how are you today?
Excellent, Marcus. It's a beautiful sunny day and my plants are thriving.
Most important thing there. Okay, so let us know in the comments. Are you a teacher of English? Are you head of your department? Are you a head teacher or principal? Or are you working in other administration as part of your school? We are welcoming everyone here. We're talking about school policies and the things that we can do in our classrooms, the things that we can set as part of our context. We really want to know sort of what's happening around the world in your classroom and school. Karen, what's your situation?
I work at the local high school, which serves around, I think about, dare I say it, 6 or 7 schools and catchment schools, villages basically in the area. So there's around 600 kids in the school from first year to the final 6th year of school. And I teach twice a week and with the first years, and I do a garden class. And my classroom is at the back of the school and the back door opens straight into the garden, which is fantastic. So we can we don't have to go through the school to get out. And we have 2 classrooms there, but we share the classrooms with other teachers, like many do. I don't know, maybe teachers watching, do you have your own classroom or do you share classrooms? I share classrooms. Sometimes there's a break before I go in, so I can get in early and organize things. Sometimes there's a big sort of mash of students, one coming out and others coming in.
Yes, that is that is a fantastic point there. Yes, sharing classrooms with other teachers, so you don't have a fixed room, which means you've kind of got no say over the sort of the posters and the decor of the classroom, and then you've also got those what's the word? Like pet peeves over. Did the teacher before you clear the board? Is the classroom furniture in the default setting?
Is there a default setting? I'm curious. Yeah,
what's your school's policy on that?
Exactly. I'm curious to know how do teachers negotiate with each other? It's been different in different schools I've worked in. Some there's been a kind of policy, but it's not been a school policy. It's been a sort of unspoken understanding between teachers that was discussed in the staff room about leaving the classroom in a sort of the default setting, which is usually, rows of 4 desks, or 4 kids can sit in a row.
Yeah, it's teacher etiquette. I think we it's not a written rule, but I think we all expect to enter a shared classroom in a particular way,
Yes.
the desks in its default form, the board clear. Obviously, we understand. Sorry, Karen.
I was going to say the one that we do have that seems to be a school-wide kind of policy, I guess, in a way, is the last lesson of the day. You put the chairs on the desk, close the windows and switch off the lights. And that helps the cleaning staff who come in and clean the school each day. And everybody does that, pretty much guaranteed, which I think I really like it a lot. And so it's like a routine, at the end of the last lesson.
I think I've worked in schools like that. Again, where teachers have, I guess, thought more about the cleaning staff than the next teacher who's coming into the classroom.
Yeah.
But
No, I'm curious to see what other teachers do in that situation. But Marcus, what has this got to do with our theme of understanding my
okay,
context?
okay. Understanding our context or understanding my context is so broad, and it essentially is about you as a teacher or head of department or school principal or school administrator, whatever you do in your school, what it, what are your powers? What say do you have? Like, for example, I was reading this week in the UK, there is a law in England for schools to ban mobile phones. Now, up until now, it was either the decision of each school individually to have a policy on mobile phone use, or the department, or even the teacher themselves. But now that particular policy has been brought in as a law. So there's, and it got us thinking, and we've had some interesting discussions on our socials this week. One about school uniform. School
Yes.
uniform.
Yes.
And again, in the UK, there is no law, or in England or Wales or Scotland or Northern Ireland, there is no law about school uniform. It's up to each individual school.
Is that so? I didn't know that. I thought it was a law. Oh, interesting. But
Yeah,
everybody
so,
follows it like it is a law.
well, again, we're back down to policy, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
That's very interesting.
who are the people making these decisions? What influence do you have as a teacher? Do you have any influence over your school's policy? Not just about uniform or mobile phones. It could be about
It can be about
the
behavior management,
yes, a response to lateness, for example.
attendance. Yes. Yes.
Yes. So when a student comes late, and I've worked at schools where, sorry, these were private language schools, but where some schools kept the door closed at a certain time. So there was no option for a student come late. It was like,
Oh, yes. I've been in schools like that too. The
yeah.
doors get locked. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who
And if you're
makes
late, you don't
who?
come
Yeah.
in.
So again, this
Yeah.
is what we talk about: policy. Like, is this you as a teacher making the rules for your classroom? Is it your department? Is it your school? Or is it higher up, like sort of at government level? Like, who are
Yeah.
making
That's
these?
interesting. And what's the process? Like a group of teachers might say in their school, okay, we need to have something a bit stricter or maybe more lenient about a dress code between summer and winter. Oh, which is just, sorry, it reminds me of something completely like related. When I was younger, I went to a school, a primary school, in another country, and the summer and the winter had very different temperatures, and the timetable was different in summer, and we started earlier in summer and finished earlier, and in winter we started later. Um, just mainly because by the afternoon, and we had classes outside sometimes under the tree because there weren't enough classrooms for people. There was no fans or air conditioning, and so I thought that was quite a good way, but I wasn't sure if that is was the individual school policy or whether that was nationwide, and how that came about. Does it come about from a discussion about teachers noticing and making and having opinions, and it goes further up the scale?
Yes, and I think that is what we're talking about. Understanding our context, understanding our part of this whole system, I guess. Karen, we've got
Which would, yeah,
loads. Sorry, just a
yes,
quick
no, no,
shout
go on. Let's
out.
say hi to everybody.
So many. We've got the Philippines. We've got Tunisia. We've got Georgia. We've got Cambodia. Morocco, sunny Italy,
Sunny Spain.
Myanmar. Myanmar, we've got loads and loads and loads.
And we've
Quick
got Myanmar
shout
and we've got
out.
YouTube as well.
Oh, we've got YouTube, we've got Instagram, we've got Facebook. We've got Ayudhya from Indonesia, following us on Instagram as well. Mercedes, Vincent. Yeah, so many teachers in
Wonderful.
different situations, in different
Yeah.
contexts. And yeah, that is really absolutely fantastic.
And then we've got Mexico, Guadeloupe, and Marianne from Germany, and Mamta from India. So one of the conversations we were having amongst ourselves, and then also on our social media pages, channels, was what point of the school year are you in? Which, like, that made me think when I was younger, we changed the timetable from winter to summer. And lots of people have just started a new school year last month. They started in some parts of the world. Some
Yeah.
are almost at the end, and some are partway through. So we're all at different stages in, energy levels, and possibly even, well, our context is different.
Exactly. Where we are as part of that sort of bigger system, and again, it kind of goes to show that we may have essentially the same job title, but our contexts are very different geographically, policy-wise, even size of the classrooms, the students that we teach. It may be as a second language, additional language.
Yep.
There's a lot going
Subjects
on
in
there.
English.
Yes,
Medium. Yeah.
absolutely.
And we might all be at different points in our careers as well.
Exactly. So some of us may be entering the profession in our first year or two. Others may, sort of be sort of mid-career, and others might be thinking about, leaving the classroom or taking a different role as part of maybe a head of department or an administration. So there's definitely a lot going on there.
And there's
so
all of
teachers,
these-
let
all
us
of- yeah.
know. Let
Yeah.
us know. Who are you in this big picture way of things? Let us know in the comments.
Because it is so interesting. I mean, I know I've worked in lots of different countries and lots of different contexts, and I've had to adapt to different classroom sizes, different policies on uniform and dress code. And coming here, where I am now, teachers are called by their first name, and that was a bit of a shock at the beginning, and I wasn't really sure quite how I felt about it. And I thought a lot about it, talked a lot about it, asked a lot of other teachers about it, because it was such a curiosity for me. And there's no uniform, and that not really a dress code particularly, and it changes over summer and winter. And for me, it was just so fascinating. So it's so interesting to hear what our different contexts are. To know that either, we're supported together, not feeling, that we're on our own, and also learning from each other and like, oh, that's a nice system that you've got there, and that's a good, way of doing things, which I think is, it's very interesting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've taught in many places, and some places I've been the master of my domain, where I've had like full control over what happens in my classroom, and other places I've essentially been powerless.
Yes.
Gosh, yeah.
I'm just going to bring up I can hear a little bit of echo there from your phone.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
That's okay. While you do that, let me just bring up this comment from Marianne, who says, 3 whole months to go here in Baden-Württemberg, Germany. Each state has different summer holidays to prevent 80 million people being on holiday at the same time. Like,
Oof.
that's such a good thing to think about. And I think that we do that in Scotland a little bit, maybe, or with England and Wales and Northern Ireland, so that not everybody starts their school holiday on the first day, on the same day, to kind of manage crowd control a little bit, either traveling on holiday or yeah, that's really interesting. Of course, I'm sure some families, if they're in different regions, might go, but there's going to be a core time, I guess, Marianne, where everyone's on holiday at the same time.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
it's a good idea as well. Well, I mean, let us know what you think. Okay, yeah, I mean,
there's one here from Laura. Um, is it going to take up? Oh, I'm going to have to squish down a little bit underneath it.
that's right, go for it.
Our academic year is closing in about 1 month. I don't teach in a school, but in a cultural community which organises lots of courses for adults and seniors. So I happen to share a classroom with other language teachers, but also with the drama and sewing club. Oh, that sounds so lovely. So it's nice to get back to class and find on the board the drawing of a dragon made by one of the actors or pieces of clothing in the corner of the room. There's an unwritten code of contact we share, which means we leave the, I'm guessing, leave the
Yeah, I would
classroom in the
imagine.
state. Yeah, we can imagine. Oh, yeah. No, so that's interesting about cleaning the board,
Yeah.
because there has been times when I've come in and gone, that's amazing board work. I
Yes.
love that. I love the
Yes.
organization. I like the drawings. And I've taken photographs sometimes, to remind me, let me remember to do some of those, like those techniques.
Yeah. I've actually used that. No, you reminded me now. I've actually used that in a lesson, a sort of dogma approach at the last minute, where we entered the classroom and there was a full board from a completely different subject, and we were using speculative language to try and guess what the previous class had been talking about.
That is a perfect example of dog me.
Yes. But yeah, you just reminded me now. Yeah, and there was a because there was a natural when I saw that kind of natural curiosity from my students. My lesson plan in my hand went out the window, and I just saw so much excitement from my learners that I thought, no, let's make this the lesson.
That is brilliant. That is very, very, very like responding to the moment. Here's one from, oh, first of all, just going back to the Marianne there, there is a core time, but it means that those of us who live in BW can get cheaper rates in the first 2 weeks of September. So yes, it also sort of manages travel as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
interesting
well, obviously
policy.
this is an issue that I mean, it's not just for parents and families, it's also for the teachers. We have those fixed holiday times,
Hmm.
so we're less able to take those sort of cheaper holiday times.
Yeah.
We have to, obviously, as part of our school's calendar and policy, we have to follow that calendar.
Here's one from Ang So in Myanmar. We just have one term successively from June to February or March, fixed class time, whether it's rainy season or not. It's interesting. I'd be interested if if there's places in the world that do change their timetable from winter to summer, or season to season, rainy or dry or hot or cold or windy, or yeah,
Yeah, because
interesting
that
study.
again, that is your context. Like
Hmm.
it's not just about you in the classroom or you in the school and the students in the school. Think about the wider picture here. You're part of the city or the country that you live in, and responding to those seasonal changes, temperature changes.
Hmm.
For example, like when I was working in Malaysia, we didn't quite have the same rainy season that other countries like Thailand or India had,
Hmm.
but there were parts of the year where a sudden downpour literally affected everyone. You couldn't go to work, you were late for school,
Yeah.
and it's kind of being aware of those things. So I do like you know, how we sort of plan to respond to things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know in between where I am in northern Spain, northeast Spain, and Scotland, where I did a lot of my schooling, the term times are really different because here it's so hot in the summer that it would be very expensive to cool a whole school. And so the summer is a lot longer, and then there's less holidays in the year. So, because I think that's another policy when I was working in a school and I was doing timetabling, and I had to timetable the whole school year, and there was certain number of school days that has to take place in a school, like mandated by the government. So when I was doing it, it was 200 days, and you had to fit 200 days into the school year calendar. And so I guess that's another policy that comes from somewhere about how many school days need to happen.
Yeah. Also, yeah, interesting. Again, how flexible are those school days? Like, how flexible are those days off? Like, I know, yeah, in parts of Spain, for example, you have a set number, and there is a bit of flexibility where you can sort of
There
position
is.
those days. When I worked in Malaysia, if there was a specific day chosen to be an off day, there was always a makeup day. Like, you had to get that day back somewhere. And occasionally it was a Saturday, a weekend. So
Interesting.
was it a day off?
Was it a day off if there's a makeup day later? Yeah, yeah, that is interesting. I know the school I work in has, and it's a word I learned in Catalan, like dias disponibles. So they're like sort of, voluntary days. They're not like a national holiday, but it's often in compensation for a public holiday that fell on a weekend, or there wasn't a moment to take it in the year. So sometimes those could be just, on a Wednesday or something. I think we've got one next week for May Day. Yeah.
Oh gosh,
Um,
yes. That's an interesting one.
yeah. Yeah, no, it is interesting. And fixing the school
Yeah, it's funny. You could
hours.
whatever.
Sorry, I think my internet went like, oh, it's got a bit hot. Go on, Marcus, carry on.
And I was going to say, like for example, in the UK, whenever there is a holiday day, it's always pushed to a Monday.
Yes.
Like May the 1st, for example. 90% of the world will have May the 1st as a public holiday, but in the UK, it's not a public holiday. It's the first Monday of May that is a public
Yes.
holiday.
Yeah.
So in that way, there's always like a long weekend as opposed to a sort of a stop in the week, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. But I was
Uh,
going to also be curious about the hours of the school day as well, and like break times and how many breaks you have and when you finish and start. And I guess a lot of those have been historical. Like holiday times have sometimes worked around working in the fields and harvest time rather than whereas that sort of doesn't really happen so much anymore. But historically, we've inherited the school timetables and the school year and the school hours from maybe things that don't aren't necessary. If somebody created a school year from scratch right now in a new made up country, I wonder if
oh,
it would be the same or not.
yeah. I think in a similar fashion to the daylight saving that we still insist on doing,
Yeah.
even though every year we have the same conversation. Do we still need it? Sorry, Karen. And so many fantastic comments.
Yeah.
Teachers watching literally right across the world in different time zones. Yeah, so we've
Different
got
contexts.
well, exactly, literally everyone. We're so curious to know about each other's contexts, as Ung comments here on YouTube. We've also got, so many greetings from Venezuela, Colombia, Myanmar. A quick comment here. We just have one term, as you mentioned there earlier. I think the same commenter here on YouTube. Loving this context. Just having a lovely little cuppa and loving the little chatette. Well, you're part of the chatette. So fantastic. Likewise, loads of people joining us on Instagram. Nafiza, I had 16 years experience in teaching English. I wish I can find a job in the UK. Obviously, it's so great to have that motivation, that love for the work after 16 years. So I do
That is brilliant.
wish you best of luck there, Nafisa.
That is brilliant. There's another rule that I just thought about. Like, is it a rule, a policy, or is it one of those unspoken things that we had when I was at school, which is, and it was called drool, down the right, up the left. And I wonder, and it's in my school as well. People go on the corridor one way in one direction and the other way in the other direction. And up and down the stairs follow the same way that you would go up and down the escalators in the metro.
Right.
Stand on the left or stand on the right, whichever country you're in or whichever way it is. And that goes into school corridor sort of people management, of how you go in and out of the classrooms and stand outside a classroom, which side do you stand on, how do you navigate the corridors and the stairs. And so in the high school that I was in when I was younger, we had down the right and up the left. And it helped the flow of traffic. Did you have anything like that when you were at school?
Yes and no. So firstly, the walking side, I mean, there's no written rule about this, but I think we generally follow the direction of traffic. So if you're in a country that drives on the left or a country that drives on the right, that's the side that you would typically walk. Mm-hmm. It was an interesting story a couple of months ago about the busyness of Heathrow Airport. And the head of Heathrow Airport was saying it appears busy because you've got a combination of people who walk on the right and people who walk on the left.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who are you blaming here? I don't know. But it's... but it does remind me of when I was in school and we did have to line up outside the classroom. And looking back now, it kind of felt a little bit sexist because boys had to be on one side and girls had to line up on the other. But essentially, you were lining up, along the corridor in front of the door. And they had to
split it. It couldn't have everybody on one side. It would go halfway around the school, maybe.
That is true. So, I mean, it's obviously an easy approach to use, essentially. It, again, depends on the position of that door in relation to, the rest of the corridor, obviously.
And something I noticed in our school, they built, there's more kids coming to the school, and so 2 new classrooms were built in a space that was available for them, and windows were put into the door. But the other doors don't have windows in them to look through. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting that the new doors have just a panel of a window that you can see in, whether the classroom's empty or not, so you don't interrupt anybody by going in. Or you can see, I don't know, like, do people like having windows or not in the doors? We're so used to working on our own with our students. Door closed quite often. We have our door open just because I like the fresh air, and we're outside quite a lot anyway. And I taught with so many teachers all over the world that I'm quite used to people coming in and out of the classroom.
Obviously.
But I know that, do you have windows in your doors or not? Is it
Yeah,
a
I think
policy or is it an unspoken thing?
well, I think a lot of schools will have them, for safeguarding reasons as well. You have to have your classroom visible from the outside to a certain degree. Yes, it can be distracting at times when someone walks past and all the students will kind of look
Say hello.
at that. But it is, it's necessary, for the safeguarding of everyone who's in that classroom, that
Yes,
that they know that they can be seen. So there's no kind of
that's a really good
feeling.
point. Yeah.
There's no kind of that feeling that you are sort of hidden away.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This is like bringing up so many memories of when I was at school and the things that we did that I've totally forgotten about. Um,
I see.
oh,
Ooh, interesting here. Comment on YouTube here from Ong. Which schools are more common in the UK? Single school or mixed? I'm guessing we're talking
interesting.
about genders
Yeah.
here. Oof, to be
It's a
honest,
good
I mean,
question.
as far as I know, everything is mixed. I can't even think of any single sex.
No, there are.
There are, okay, fancy boarding schools maybe.
Yes, I think like I don't think there are any state schools unless it was a religious school, maybe. Anyway, it's a good question.
Yeah, but certainly state-wise, no,
No, I think it's all mixed. Co-ed.
don't.
This
Yeah.
is like so this is one of the questions that we posted um, from Emad on should teachers be able to answer all students' questions? And so now we're in this very same position. Should we be able to answer everything or not? And that was a really good example of like, oh, that's really interesting. Let's go away and have a look and research it and find out. I'll ask my family members who are in education.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, but
yeah,
again,
very
that
interesting.
yeah, I think that's where we are as well. We will always have those questions from our students that we can't answer, and what do? We're, trying to outsource it back to the students, try and get them to either speculate or answer or find a way to get to some kind of answer. In the same way that we, as adults, don't always know the answer, and we will chat with our colleagues. We'll talk about it, and we'll come to some kind of conclusion. It's what we do
Yeah,
in life, in work, and I think we do try to promote that in our students as well. Obviously these days everyone goes to their phone, ChatGPT or the AI
yeah.
for immediate sort of advice, but it's still a nice thing to do. To ask your friends, to ask your
It
colleagues.
is, and it's more genuine. I mean, it's like you know that it's real.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I do remember seeing. I can't remember where it was now. I was walking along a street somewhere, and someone in front of me asked for directions to a certain place, and the response was to get out their own Google map. So it's like
Oh,
they didn't know the answer, but they wanted to help that person nevertheless
yeah.
by checking out on their phone.
There's an interesting comment here in Morocco um, that we have different. This is from Miabu. In Morocco, we have different timetable when the season changes from winter to spring in public primary schools, and we follow the same vacation schedule regarding the main public holidays. Interesting. So yes, there is a change in timetable for seasons. I was curious about that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess it's not just the timetabling, but it's also being aware of how your students are as well. So, for example, if it is like, okay, you're in Spain, Karen, when it comes to the summer months, like as we're
Hmm.
entering now,
Hmm.
there is a different energy in the
Definitely.
classroom
Definitely.
compared to the winter.
Definitely. Definitely. Very much so. The light, the air, the temperature. I think especially the light. Like I came out yesterday from somewhere and it was like 6:30 p.m. and I went, wow, the light is so bright. even though it was evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly, and it affects your mood. It's
Yeah.
a seasonal affective disorder. You know, you behave differently according to those sort of seasons. Karen, oof, so many comments.
So many comments.
Oof. Okay. So I'm just trying to read, check out. Is there anything that pops?
No, lots of teachers joining us from all
Yeah.
over, Italy, Albania, Jordan. But also, look at the time, Marcus.
Yes, I do appreciate that, Karen. Oof, yeah, so just a quick shout out to Skipgate.
Yeah.
My questions: we have to continue with technology in our schools or to come back. Books like Scandinavia countries that come back to books. That's interesting. The sort of the material for your lessons.
Yeah.
Is it digitized on your school learning platform or some kind of iPad, or is it a physical book with pages? Interesting to see that in some countries like Scandinavia, or some regions like Scandinavia.
That's an interesting question, actually. I'll just make a note of that. That's an interesting question I think that's an interesting question to ask. You know, all connected to like our different contexts and how that might affect learning. I'll just make a note of that. Paper. Yeah. Lovely, 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 lovely. I think Shipcabe answered their own question.
Okay,
I think it
that's
comes
good.
back to books and a lot of tools in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I've noticed that. I think that there was a genuine fascination with sort of more tactile things. Kids who are growing up in this kind of digital world, we can't physically understand what they're going through, but they
No.
like to touch things, and
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
that. You know.
Yeah, all the lessons that we do where you know putting strips of paper in order or matching them to things or putting them labeling on a diagram, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, then those are the lessons where the behavior is better because they're all very focused and doing something. And the time seems to go quite quickly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Speaking
yeah.
speaking of time going quite quickly. Yes. Teachers, thank you so much for joining us. We have been talking about our context as part of our theme, understanding my context, and the theme is so broad. It includes school policies, safeguarding of learners, so many things that we may be part of the decision making. We might be part of the sort of the process in determining school policy, or even at sort of local or national level as well. We will pop a link in the description, or you can check out our bio to find out more about this topic of understanding my context.
And on that
But
note,
for now,
Marcus, I was just going
yeah,
to say conversations that we will continue with throughout the next month and a half of this theme is this one from Irena, cell phones. That will no doubt be a big topic of conversations. This
huge.
one from YouTube, I remember this cardboard coins in first grade. So we remember the physical things.
Yes,
And yes, so we will be continuing lots of these conversations. So stay with us.
absolutely. Anyway, but for now, stay tuned. Plenty more discussions to come on this topic.
Bye, everybody.